You say you wanna be a star, but the city is so dense and loaded. You need to cover up your scars.
Good day, everyone! I am Miss Jara Michael N. Carreras, a second-year mall student, and I will be one of your presenters for today. I will be discussing about semantics, specifically the following subtopics. Come and join me in exploring the world of semantics. Of the various parts of grammar that people may have occasion to refer to, semantics is one of the most familiar. Certainly, it is far more familiar than phonology, morphology, or syntax. That's just semantics is a frequent claim in arguments and debates. Even the proverbial person in the street knows that semantics has something to do with meaning. Linguistic semantics is a study of the systematic ways in which languages structure meaning, especially in words and sentences. In defining linguistic semantics, which we will refer to as semantics from now on, we must invoke the word meaning. Just as we have many everyday notions of what semantic is, we use the words to mean and meaning in many contexts and for different purposes. Let's take a look at these examples. Letter A. The word perplexity means the state of being puzzled. Letter B. The word rash has two meanings, impetuous and skin irritation. Letter C. In Spanish, espejo means mirror. Letter D. I did not mean that he is incompetent, just inefficient. Letter E. The meaning of the cross as symbol is complex. And letter F. I meant to bring you my paper, but left it at home. What is meaning? Linguists also attach different interpretations to the word meaning, because the purpose of linguistics is to explain precisely how languages are structured and used. It is important to distinguish among the different ways of interpreting the word meaning. A few examples will illustrate why we need to develop a precise way of talking about meaning. Let's consider these sentences. Letter A. I went to the store this morning. Letter B. All dogs are animals. What have you observed with these sentences? That's correct. The sentences make sense, that is, have meaning for quite different reasons. Whether sentence A is true depends on whether or not the speaker is in fact telling the truth. Nothing about the words of the sentence makes the sentence inherently true. On the other hand, sentence B is true because we know that the word dogs describe entities that are also described by the word animals. The truth of sentence B does not depend on whether or not the speaker is telling the truth. It has solely to do with the meaning of the words dogs and animals. Now compare the following pairs of sentences. Letter C. You are too young to drink. You are not old enough to drink. Letter D. Harold spent several years in northern Tibet. Harold was once in Tibet. The sentences of C basically say the same thing, in that the first describes exactly what the second describes. No more, no less. We say that they are synonymous sentences, or that they paraphrase each other. Of the two sentences in D, the first sentence implies the second, but not vice versa. If indeed Harold spent several years in northern Tibet, then he must have set foot in that area of the world at some stage in his life. But if he was once in northern Tibet, it is not necessarily the case that he spent years there. Next, consider the following sentences. Letter E. The unmarried woman is married to a bachelor. Letter F. My toothbrush is pregnant. Sentences E and F are well formed syntactically, but there is something wrong with the meaning of both sentences. The meanings of the words that make up sentence E contradict each other. An unmarried woman cannot be married, and certainly not to a bachelor. Sentence E thus presents a contradiction. Sentence F is different. Given that toothbrushes are not capable of being pregnant, its meaning is anomalous. To diagnose precisely what is wrong with both sentences, we need to distinguish between contradictory and anomalous sentences. Finally, examine sentences G and H. Letter G. I saw her duck. Letter H. She ate the pie. Sentence G may be interpreted in two ways. Duck may be a verb referring to the act of bending over slightly while walking through a low doorway, for example. Or it may be a noun referring to a domesticated bird. These two word meanings give the whole sentence different meanings. Because there are two possible readings for sentence G, it is an ambiguous sentence. While sentence H is not ambiguous, taken out of context, there is an imprecise quality to it. While we know that the subject is a female, we cannot know who the word she refers to or what particular pie was eaten, though the structure of the phrase, the pie, indicates that the speaker has a particular one in mind. Taken out of context, sentence H is thus vague in that certain details are left unspecified, but it is not ambiguous. These observations illustrate that meaning is a multifaceted notion. Sentence may be meaningful and true because it states a fact about the world or because the speaker is telling the truth. Two sentences may be related to each other because they mean exactly the same thing or because one implies the other. Finally, when we feel that there is something wrong with the meaning of a sentence, it may be is contradictory, anomalous, ambiguous, or merely vague. One purpose of semantics is to distinguish among these different ways in which language means. We are now going to proceed to the three types of meaning. We have three types of meaning. First, we have referential. Second, we have social. And third, we have affective meaning. Referential meaning is the object, notion, or state of affairs described by a word or sentence. One way of defining meaning is to say that the meaning of a word or sentence is the person, object, abstract, notion, event, or state to which the word or sentence makes reference. The meaning of John Smith, for example, is the person who goes by that name. The phrase Fred's dog refers to the particular domesticated canine that belongs to Fred. That particular animal can be said to be the meaning of the linguistic expression Fred's dog. This type of meaning is a referential meaning. The canine described by the expression Fred's dog is the referent of the referring expression Fred's dog. Speakers of English know what the referents of referring expressions like father, book, and truth are, although may be hard to put to explain exactly what these referents look like and may have slightly different notions of what these referents are, particularly in the case of abstract referring expressions like truth. Words, of course, are not the only linguistic units to carry referential meaning. Sentences also have meaning because, like words and phrases, they refer to actions, states, and events in the world around us. For example, John is sleeping on the sofa refers to the fact that a man known as John is currently lying down or sitting on an elongated piece of furniture, generally meant to be sat upon. The referent of the sentence, John is sleeping on the sofa, is thus the action, or in this case, state of being, of John on the piece of furniture in question. Referential meaning is not the only type of meaning that language users communicate to each other, because we also have this other type of meaning, which is social meaning. Social meaning is the level of meaning that we rely on when we identify certain social characteristics of the speakers and situations from the character of the language used. Now let's consider the following sentences. Letter A. Then I says to her, she can't talk to me like that. Letter B. Is it a doctor in here? Letter C. Y'all come visit over the Christmas vacation. Letter D. I adore your lavender shawl. It's absolutely gorgeous. Letter E. Great chow! In addition to representing actions, states, and mental processes, these sentences convey information about the identity of the person who has uttered them. In sentence A, the use of verb says with the first person singular pronoun reveals something about the speaker's social class. In sentence B, the form it, where other varieties use the word there, indicates a speaker of an ethnically marked non-standard variety of English. In sentence C, the pronoun y'all identifies a particular regional dialect of American English. The choice words in sentence C suggest a female speaker. It is thus marked with respect to gender. Finally, the choice words in sentence E indicates that the comment was made in an informal context. Social class, ethnicity, regional origin, gender, and context are all social factors, in addition to referential meaning. Therefore, language also conveys social meaning. It is not only examples like sentence A through E that are easily recognized as socially marked. Every utterance carries social meaning, not only in the sentence as a whole, but in word choice such as y'all and chow, and pronunciations as in gonna or nothing. Besides referential and social meaning, there is a third kind of meaning, which is affective meaning. This is the emotional connotation that is attached to words and utterances. This is the level of meaning that conveys the language user's feelings, attitudes, and opinions about a particular piece of information or about the ongoing context. Now let's compare the following examples. Sentence A. Harold, who always boasts about his 2 PhDs, lectured me the entire evening on Walhart's art. Sentence B. Harold, who has 2 PhDs, gave me a fascinating overview of Warhol's art last night. These two sentences can be used to describe exactly the same event. They have similar referential meaning. At another level, however, the information they convey is different. Sentence A gives the impression that the speaker considers Harold a pretentious bore. Sentence B, in contrast, indicates that the speaker finds Harold interesting. The feeling of the utterances is thus quite different. Word choice is not the only means of communicating feelings and attitudes toward utterances and context. A striking contrast is provided by sentences that differ only in terms of stress or intonation. This string of words can be interpreted in several ways depending on its intonation. Let's take a look at this sample sentence. Harold is really smart. The sentence can be uttered in a matter-of-fact way without emphasizing any word in particular, in which case it will be interpreted literally as a remark acknowledging Harold's intelligence. But if the words really and smart are stressed in an exaggerated manner, the sentence may be interpreted sarcastically to mean exactly the opposite. Intonation, often accompanied by appropriate facial expressions, is used frequently as a device to communicate attitudes and feelings. It can completely override the literal meaning of a sentence. Let's consider this another example. Suppose that Mary Smith, happily married to John Smith, addresses her husband as follows. John Smith, how many times have I asked you not to flip through the TV channels? There would be reason to look beyond the words for the meaning of this unusual form of address. Mrs. Smith may address her husband as John Smith to show her exasperation. As in this example, what she conveys by choosing to address her husband as John Smith instead of the usual John is frustration and annoyance. Her choice of name thus means that she is exasperated. Contrast to the tone of that sentence with a similar tone in which Mrs. Smith addresses Mr. Smith as dear. Affective meaning is not an exclusive property of sentences. Words like alas and hooray obviously have affective meaning, as do words like funny, sweet, and obnoxious. In fact, even the most common words like father, democracy, and old evoke in us particular emotions and feelings. The difference between synonymous or near synonymous pairs of words like vagrant and homeless is essentially a difference at the affective level. In this particular pair, the first word carries a rather negative affective meaning, while the second is neutral or positive. Little is known yet about how affective meaning works, but it is of great importance to all verbal communication. Let's now proceed to the third subtopic under semantics, in which we are going to discuss about word meaning, sentence meaning, and utterance meaning. We have talked about words and sentences as two units of language that carry meaning. Content words, principally nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, have meaning in that they refer to concrete objects and abstract concepts. They are marked as being characteristic of particular social, ethnic, and regional dialects and of particular context, and convey information about the feelings and attitudes of language users. Function words such as prepositions and articles also carry meaning, though in a different way from the content words. Like individual words, sentences also have social and affective connotations. The study of meaning, however, differs from the study of sentence meaning because the units are different in kind. In order for a sentence to have meaning, we must rely on the meaning of individual words that make it up. How we accomplish the task of retrieving sentence meaning from word meaning is a complex question. One obvious hypothesis is that the meaning of a sentence could simply be the sum of the meaning of its words. To see that this is not the case, consider the following sentence in which the individual words and therefore their sum meanings are the same. The hunter beat the lion. The lion beat the hunter. Clearly, the sentences refer to different events and hence have distinct referential meanings. This is conveyed by the fact that the words of the sentences are ordered differently. In English, the order in which words are arranged in a sentence can be crucial to meaning. Thus, we cannot simply say that in order to retrieve the meaning of the sentence, all we need to do is add up the meanings of its components. What we must take into consideration, in addition to the meaning of individual words, is the semantic role assigned to each word. By semantic role, we mean such things as who did, what, to whom, with whom, or for whom. In other words, the semantic role of a word is the role that its referent plays in the action or state of being described by the sentence. Sentence semantics is concerned with the relationship between words and their semantic roles. While it is important to distinguish between word meaning and sentence meaning, the two interact on many levels. A clear example of this mutual interaction is provided by the following sentence. He may leave tomorrow if he finishes his term paper. In this sentence, the words may, tomorrow, and if have meanings as individual function words. May denotes permission or possibility. Tomorrow indicates a future time unit that begins the following midnight, and if indicates a condition. But the impact of this word goes beyond the phrases in which they occur and affects the meaning of the entire sentence. Indeed, if we replace may with will, the sentence takes on a completely different meaning. He will leave tomorrow if he finishes his term paper. The sentence with may denotes a permission or possibility, while the sentence with will is simply the description of a future event. Thus, may affects the meaning of the entire sentence. The scope of the meaning of the function word may is the entire sentence. This is also true of tomorrow and of if. Many function words and grammatical morphemes, for that matter, have sentence scope. What this example illustrates is that the word meaning and sentence meaning are intimately related. In addition to words and sentences, there is a third unit that also carries meaning, though we may not notice it as clearly because we often take it for granted in day-to-day interactions. And this is called utterance. This sentence may be uttered in at least two different sets of circumstances. Letter A, by a pastor or priest presiding at a ceremony to a young couple getting married in the presence of their assembled families. Or letter B, by an actor dressed as a pastor or priest to two actors before a congregation of Hollywood extras assembled in the same church by a director giving instruction for the filming of a television soap opera. In the first instance, I now pronounce you husband and wife will affect a marriage between the couple intending to get married. But that same utterance will have no effect on the marital status of any party on the movie location. Thus, the circumstances of utterance create different meanings, although we could not say that the referential meaning of the sentence changes. It is therefore necessary to know the circumstances of utterance in order to appreciate and understand the effect or force of the utterance. We say that the sentence uttered in the wedding context and the sentence uttered in the film context have the same referential meaning but are different utterances, each with its own utterance meaning. The difference between sentence meaning and utterance meaning can be further illustrated by the question, "Can you shut down the window?" There are at least two ways in which the addressee might react to this question. One possible response would be to say, "Yes," meaning, "Yes, I am physically capable of shutting the window," and to do nothing about it. We will call this the smart aleck interpretation. It is, of course, not the way such a question is meant in most cases. Another way in which the addressee might react would be to get up and shut the window. Obviously, these interpretations of the same question are different. The smart aleck interpretation treats the question as a request for information. The second interpretation treats it as a request for action, which, in the way it is most likely to have been meant. To describe the difference between these interpretations, we can say that they are distinct utterances. Sentence semantics is not concerned with utterance meaning. Utterances are the subject of investigation of another branch of linguistics called pragmatics. One of the basic premises of sentence semantics is that sentences must be divorced from the context in which they are uttered. To experienced language users, this stance may appear strange and counterintuitive, since so much of a sentence meaning depends on context. The point is not to discard context as unimportant or uninteresting, but to recognize that in a fundamental sense, sentence meaning is independent of context, while utterance meaning depends on the circumstances of the utterance. The branch of linguistics called semantics examines word meaning and sentence meaning while generally ignoring context. Pragmatics, in contrast, pays less attention to the relationship of word meaning to sentence meaning and more attention to the relationship of utterance to its context. And so that is all for the first part of the discussion about semantics. Stay tuned because the next presenter will be talking more about semantics. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.